Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are diving back into our Forbidden Desire series by Kendall Ryan. And if you have not already listened to the first two books in the series, those links are going to be available down below in the description section. So once you listen to those reviews, come and join us as we dive into book 3, which is called A Torrid Affair. It's been 6 months since Cooper left Boston, and he is in a house that he purchased in Sanibel Island, which is, I think, somewhere off the coast in Florida. He, of course, has been sleeping with the different tourists, trying to get our girl Emma out of his system. And then one day, he gets a call from Quinn, and he answers on this particular day. And Quinn's like, you actually answered the phone. And then Quinn tells him, you need to come back. And Cooper's like, why? And Quinn's like, because if you don't, we're removing you from payroll and we're kicking you out of the company. Well, that got his attention. So he's like, okay, fine. I'll come back. But he was thinking that, it's probably Gavin who's trying to push, to get me out. And no, it's that you had a purpose in doing this trip. They knew you needed to get away, but also they were looking to expand. So this was supposed to be like helping the company and you at the same time. And you just completely stopped looking for places of a potential second site. So no, he's trying to play that game. And I'm like, I don't feel sorry for you right now. Because he's just mad at Gavin because Emma married him. So then he demands to get the jet, and Quinn's just kind of like, when did you become so demanding? And he's like, he got his heart broken by someone, and that tends to push you in a different direction. And so Quinn told him he also hired him an assistant named Corinne. So we meet Corinne, yay, because it's going to be from her POV, and I love when they switch back and forth. So she's talking with someone named Mauve, who is like a mother to her. We find out that she had a job. It closed down due to funding, so she was unemployed for a while. So this job is great because it pays really great and it also has great benefits. So she's like really excited. However, she doesn't want to tell Mauve exactly what the company is. She does not want to say it's an escort service. So she just says, she'll be coordinating schedules and just looking at a computer all day. So Mauve is sickly. I'm not sure exactly what she has, if they wrote it in there. I didn't write it down. Um, but she has like oxygen tubes and stuff. So yeah, she's pretty sick. She of course wants Corinne to get back out there, date. Corinne's like, I love my romance novels, and that's enough for me. She does know it's not enough, but she just kind of feels like for now that's just gonna have to do. So Cooper gets back in Boston, and on this Monday morning, he comes back to work. He realizes he really has missed his place, both his apartment and the office. And so he, of course, hugs Quinn, and Gavin hugged him, which shocked him. And Gavin even said, we missed you. I don't know why the Gavin's never acted like he didn't like him. You know what I mean? He understood what the situation was. You know, I didn't agree with some of the stuff that Gavin did, but I didn't see where Gavin in the end was trying to like make him feel bad or like push him in a position to, have to suffer watching them together. In the end, in the beginning, he was more of a dick, but in the end, he wasn't really like that. So I feel like he's built up this thing with Gavin, like Gavin's the worst because Gavin got the woman, right? So I need to kind of hate you a little bit. So I think the worst of you. I think that's kind of what is going on with Cooper. Quinn tells him, I got a gift for you in your office. So he goes to his office. He sees Corinne. Corinne is like voluptuous, nice, beautiful, sexy woman. And immediately he's attracted to her. And dude thinks this is his gift. So he thinks Quinn has got one of the escort women to cheer him up. And so he says to Corinne, before you get on your knees and put my dick in your mouth, he said something about doing something else to her, and the girl of course freaked out. She runs out crying. She went to the bathroom. He realizes, oops, I made a mistake. So he goes to Alyssa, who's Gavin's assistant, and he's like, can you go in there and check on Corinne, because I just kind of did something really stupid. He doesn't go into detail about what he did, but he just was like, can you just go check on her? So she goes and checks on her. Then he goes to tell Quinn what he did. Quinn at first is like, what? Why would you do that? And he was like, you told me you had a gift for me. He's like, the gift was the fact that you had an assistant. I guess he didn't have one before, kind of. So he's like, that's what I figured you would need to make, the transition with you coming back easier. Like, I didn't tell you I was giving you a woman, but at the same time, you saying I have a gift for you. I'm sorry, I can see how he thought that, but I don't think he should approach it the way that he did. But he should have used better terminology. Quinn should have. This man is not fully in his right state of mind. Like, I don't know. Quinn says to him, like, when have I ever done that? And he's like, yeah, you're right. So then he's like, you need to go make this right, like, now. So he goes back to the office. Corinne's in there. He apologizes profusely to her, tells her, he had just had a really bad breakup. It wasn't even a breakup. I'm just saying. But anyway, I digress. He told her, the truth. Like, I thought my brother was trying to cheer me up. And she's like, is that what they normally do? Give you women? And he was like, no, they never do that. But then he apologized again. But then he asked her a question. Well, before she freaked out, he noticed that there was a look of interest in her eyes, and he wanted to understand why. And so he says, that no, she says it's been a really long time since she's been with someone. And he, of course, wanted to understand why. And she's just kind of like, let's just say the experience I had, it wasn't a pleasant one. And then, of course, he is looking at her like, and he says to her, like, you're gorgeous. He's like, I just can't believe that no one has ever, like, taken their time to please you. I can't understand that. So now this has his brain churning. And he has come up with an idea. And he presents it to her. So he says, what if, I take care of you sexually and show you how good it actually could be? And she, of course, is like, no, we work together. And he's like, well, work will be work. When we're here, we're co-workers. But when we leave, we'll just be a man and a woman. And he was like, just think about it. So Corinne leaves, goes grocery shopping, comes home. She shares an apartment with a guy named Aaron. He's paralyzed, and he has a dog as well. So Aaron has the communication skills of like an 8-year-old. He has a nurse that comes in when she's not there. For her, it's a great situation. She doesn't want to live alone, so this works for her. However, she is very much thinking about the offer that Cooper presented to her. So when she goes to work the next morning, she marches into his office. She's very nervous and basically wants to know, listen, if I decide not to do this, is my job contingent upon this? This answer? And he, of course, was like, God, no. He's like, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. I would never hold your job over you like that. It has nothing to do with it. So then she's like, okay. She's like, well, I still need more time to think. Now, the mere fact that she said that, we already know she's going to do it. Because if the answer was no, it would have been no. It wouldn't have been, so is my job, no. It would have been no. And then probably a threat, like, my job better not be on the line because I refuse to sleep with you. You got to word it right. But, yeah, the mere fact she's like, I need more time, she's going to cave. He, of course, tells her, take all the time you need, little dove. So that is now his name for her. And then she leaves out. So then Cooper goes to Quinn's office and he asked to see Corinne's personnel file. And when he looked at it, he saw where she grew up in an orphanage. She had been working as soon as she was able to get a job. It did hint, I guess, at some abuse thing, some kind of way. I guess I don't know, because they do like thorough background checks. Um, so he can very much tell she didn't have an easy life, and it just made him even more so want to show her the many ways of pleasure, that he could give to her. So then he didn't say anything to Quinn about his proposal to her, but Quinn invited him over to his place for dinner. So he goes over, and when he's there, he does tell Quinn about the proposition. And at first, Quinn's kind of like, "Do you think this is smart?" He's like, "This has disaster written all over it." He's like, "What if you fall for her? Or what if she doesn't fall for you? Or what if she falls for you and you don't fall for her? Like, you all work together." He's like, "I know, but it's going to be separate. When same thing he told her, when we're at work, we're at work. When we're outside, we fuck." That's literally how he put it. So Quinn was like, pretty much have at it. But since you're talking about um, pleasure and like this type of thing, you might want to talk to Gavin about the whole dominant submissive thing, you know? And he, of course, is like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to have to ask him about this," but at the same time, he knows this is the best person to ask. We make it to the end of the week, and Alyssa tells Corinne, "We're going to take you out for drinks. It's a tradition here. When someone new comes on, we take them out." So she goes, she gets tipsy, probably a little bit more closer to drunk by mistake. And then when all three brothers come, when she looks at Cooper, she's like, "Yeah, this is gonna happen. Girl has decided." So she almost falls. Cooper catches her, and then after a while, she's ready to go, and Cooper kind of sensed it, so he asks her, "You want to get out of here? I can take you home." So he takes her home. They're in the car, and she says, "I want to do this. I think we should do this." He doesn't say anything. They get to her place. He gets out, opens the door for her, walks her to her door, and then they share this extremely passionate kiss. And she whispers in his ear, because they're grabbing on each other and everything. She's like, "I want more," and he says, "Not when you're drunk." He's like, "You've had too much to drink." He's like, "If you still feel like this tomorrow, let me know and we'll work out the details." Kissed her again and left. And then, but she felt like, "I've made the right decision." So Cooper, goes to talk to Gavin, tells Gavin the whole situation. Gavin doesn't trip like Quinn. He kind of pretty much was like, all he said was, "I've read her file. Have you?" And he was like, "Yeah, I see where she grew up in the system and stuff like that." And Gavin was just like, "You need to be careful." And he told him, "You need to have a lot of conversation. You need to find out what she likes." He literally says this. He's like, "Some women like to be fucked in the ass, but they don't want to be kissed. So you need to know what it is that she is definitely okay with and doesn't." And so then, of course, Cooper's like, "Do we need to do a safe word?" He's like, "No." He's like, "No should be enough." He's like, "I don't think you really need that." He's like, "You all just need to have conversation, and that conversation should never stop." He's like, "You want to make sure she feels valued. Um, take her to dinner, stuff like that." Um, but this is where things can get, very convoluted, because this is how you treat people you want to date. This is how you treat them. You treat them with talking, with communication, trying to find out more about them. You don't do that with someone that you have no real interest in. So right there, we already see this is going to be a little convoluted. This isn't going to be as straightforward as you all might have thought, because you really don't fully just see her as a piece of ass. Like, you clearly are looking at her through another lens. So Cooper's going to make dinner for her. Um, Gavin actually was like, Emma could help you. And at first he was like, is that a good idea? But then he was like, no, that she actually would be the best person for that. So he goes to the grocery store. When he gets back home, Emma's already there to his place. And he finds that he feels normal around her. His blood's not pumping. Like his blood never did this when he was around Emma like it does with Corinne. Like it's a totally different vibe. And they wound up having a conversation. He really didn't need her there because he had gone to Italy on vacation one time and did a cooking class and took it like a bunch of times because he was trying to date the instructor, but she turned him down. But he learned how to make a bomb lasagna. So Emma really wasn't needed, but it was kind of good that she was there because they were able to have a conversation and basically just apologies to one another, realizing that you know they're friends. They were sorry for ever misleading. She was sorry for misleading him and for not being sure at first. And he was sorry for how he reacted when he found out. And so now they're cool. So Corinne comes over to his place. They have dinner. He gives her a glass of wine, relax her. They have great conversation. Um, he even tells her about the Emma situation completely. And I think he was just trying. And again, this is not stuff you're trying to get to know the person. You're trying to be completely forthright about things so a person doesn't feel like there's still something going on with someone. Like you don't do that to people you don't care about. I'm just saying, you just don't. And she, of course, was kind of like, she says to him, like, you don't have to tell me that. Because he was like, we're just friends, him and Emma and all this type of stuff. He's like, well, actually, we're in-laws, because she's married to Gavin. And again, she's like, you don't have to tell me that. And he, of course, is just, I'm just trying to be forthright with you. They're on the couch having a little more conversation, and then they start kissing, and it gets very intense, and she wants more. So he kisses her even harder, and then it gets to a point where they're taking off clothes. He has her naked. He goes down on her, starts eating her pussy, and he doesn't stop until she comes. And the girl literally states that it felt like her soul left her body. And then the realization of what happened hit her. She felt pure shame, and all she could think of was like, I need to get my clothes and I need to get out of here. This was a mistake. So she gets her clothes on real quick. He says he's saying things to her, but she can't hear what he's saying. She gets out of there. And she says, like, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said yes to this offer. So then Cooper's clearly is like, something in her past had to make her do this. And of course he wants to know what it is. So she goes home and she took a really long shower. She kept washing herself, trying to make herself feel clean. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I felt bad for her. So the next morning, he didn't sleep well at all. Well, he hadn't slept at all that night. And he's on his like third cup of coffee before he even left his apartment. Gets to work. He runs into Corinne in the elevator. He teases her because there's other people in there. And he says, how was your evening? And she says, oh, it was fine. And then he says, did you do anything interesting? And he could see beads of sweat starting to form on her. Um, which means it was having an effect. And she says nothing, just pretty much say it to myself. And then he says, yeah, me too, nothing eventful happened. He was teasing, but it hurt her because I guess it sounded like to her, like I was nothing. And he felt bad because he was not trying to make her feel that way. And so he tells her, after the people got off, he tells her, to come to his office so we can at least talk, clear the air. And she agreed. So she got all her stuff together, and then she came to his office, and she tells him, I can't do this. And she's like, we just got to be work colleagues. That's it. I can't handle anything beyond that. She's like, I'm high maintenance. I have a lot of issues. She's like, I'm not stupid. I know that, there are plenty of women that want you. Um, but I just can't do it. And he says to her, I think you're lying. He says, not only to me, but to yourself, because the way that you respond to me is someone who wants it. So he says to her, what does he say? I think he says to her, when you're ready, pretty much tell me whatever it is. I'm an open book. You can talk to me. And she's like, I'm not ready to talk. And he's like, fine, but just know that I care. And so when she walks out, she says to him, I care too. See, which you already knew, because your response to the person was something not of someone that I'm just going to fuck you and that's it. It was just, it's a different response. They had this passionate kiss too before he left. And he had to stop himself because he was ready to like bang her in the office. So when Corinne comes out of the office, she looks flush. Alyssa sees it. Alyssa calls her out. And she's like, what's going on with you and Cooper? She, of course, is like, what are you talking about? She's like, you just came out of his office all flushed. So they go to lunch together. Alyssa's trying to get answers, right? But Corinne's not giving any. But at the same time, she's trying to get answers about Cooper. So for someone that nothing's happened, again, why are you trying to find out about this man? She's like, Alyssa says, I don't really know that much, to be honest with you. I don't even know that much about Gavin, and I work for him. She's like, the person you need to talk to is Emma. And Alyssa thought the best way to do it, she's like, get a couple drinks in her because she's a lightweight, right? So Corinne was like, this is really deceptive. But she winds up agreeing to go on a girls' night. They go see a band. Emma actually is the one that brings up Cooper to Corinne. And she asked her, like, is something going on between the two of you? And she was really honest with her. She says, there wasn't, but she kind of, it was weird because it's like, yeah, I mean, he ate your pussy, so something's up. You know what I mean? But you don't just go around saying the dude ate your cooch. So she pretty much was like, but it's a possibility I might want it to be, right? And so Emma told her the truth about him and said, like, he's a great guy. Corinne could tell that Emma does love him. It may not be that type of love, but they clearly have a bond. And she knew if she was going to do anything with him, she would have to be okay with that. So here's the thing. And I don't think it is that big of a deal because too they never had sex. They had a couple like some smidges of kisses, nothing dramatic. And again, she's married to the brother, and that's where she is. Like, he kind of put himself in that position, as I ranted in that first and probably second video. He put himself in that position to get all hurt up. The minute he saw something between him, which he saw from day one, he should have just backed up. That was it. But he didn't do it. Especially when somebody else is asking you about another dude. I ain't finna sit there and keep trying to chase you. That's crazy behavior. So it's nothing for her to be concerned with. They have a friendship, and that's literally all it is. It will never be anything more. So the only thing Emma says, she does say they had a rough childhood, but she doesn't go into detail. She does kind of tell her, listen, he'll open up to you when he's ready. He'll let you know about that. None of them really talk about that. She has a really great time. Gets drunk and winds up texting, or did she call? No, she called Cooper, and he was like, do you want me to come and pick you up? She's like, I don't want to mess up the girls' night. If you could, that would be great. And he gets there, and when he gets to her, girl passes out. So when she wakes up the next morning, she's in his apartment. She doesn't have on a bra. She has on a shirt, but she doesn't know how her bra is not, like, how is it not on me? He tells her, you kept tugging at it, and I know women normally don't sleep in them, so I took it off for you. He's like, but I did not look. He was like, I didn't even sneak a peek, even though I wanted to, because you are so fucking sexy. And she was just like, okay. So now she's in flight mode again, right? And she's like, I gotta get out of here. She's like, I didn't even call my roommate. He's like, well, you can just call her later. And she goes, it's a he. And he says, a he? You have a male roommate? And she says, yes. And then he asks her, are you sleeping with him? And she says, no. And he wants to know if they were previously sexual with each other. And he tells her, like, there's no one else for him. Like, he hasn't been doing anything. You know, if they're going to do this, like, he doesn't want to, like, you know, him to be messing with other people, her to be messing with other people. And she gets her stuff and she bolts out of there. So he winds up texting her later that day, asking her to go to a museum for a zombie exhibit. And afterwards, they do a movie and she agreed to go. She, of course, texts him like, this is not a date, right? And he says, nope, not a date. So they go and she apologizes for running out on him, but doesn't give too much other explanation until a little later. She does it. She admits that she went out with Alyssa and Emma, and she did tell him, like, I guess what Emma said about his childhood, not giving details. And he's like, so she just brought that up? And she said, no, I might have asked about you. That, of course, made him happy because that meant she wanted to know more about him, just like he wanted to know more about her. So then they did this question for question thing. So, like, fact for fact. She still isn't going to spill everything, but she just kind of talked about some experiences at the homes, the group homes that she experienced. And she said the group homes were more like, they were more, how do I say this? The foster homes were more like group homes. She says because there were always a bunch of kids. And how one time she had ran away because she wanted to be by herself and wanted to see if she could make it in the streets of Boston. She got caught stealing food from a food cart. And he tells her about the fact that his mom was a prostitute. So now they're bonding. So then they had watched the movie. Afterwards, he asked her if she wanted to go back to his place and continue this non-date. And she said, sure, let's go. They go back to his place. And this time she can really take in how beautiful his home was, because the first time she came, she was like really nervous. And then the second time she was too drunk. So she sat on the couch and he basically let her know, like, you know, he didn't want her to run. He's like, if you're not comfortable, you let me know. I can, you know, I can accommodate whatever. So then they start kissing, and of course he starts wanting more. No, she starts wanting more. He starts fingering her, and she said something about like what he did last time, and he was like, I've been wanting to eat your pussy basically since I saw you at the museum in the skirt. And so he takes off his shirt. They finally wind up in the bedroom. He eats her pussy. She comes, and then afterwards, she didn't run. She did apologize to him because he held her afterwards, but she can tell he's like super hard. And she tells him, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't mean to be selfish. He's like, it's okay, Dove. He's like, I only want you to do what you're comfortable with. You know, he's like, I'm fine. And the fact that he was willing to put her needs above his just made her want to please him. And so she took out his dick and jacked him off. So she did tell him, you know, that she wasn't that experienced. He said, that's okay. There's no expectation. But it was super erotic how he came in her hand. So she still leaves that night, but it wasn't the, rushing out. The nurse only stays so long with Aaron, so that's why she had to leave. He doesn't know that. So she woke up the next morning. It's Sunday. She gets up to go make breakfast. And she looks at her phone and she has all these messages from Cooper. And he's just saying these things of like, well, hold on, let me back up. She's having these thoughts. Before she pulled out her phone, she was having thoughts about how she was too high maintenance. She has too much stuff going on. This guy is like Hollywood GQ, type of guy. I don't fit in with him. Like all these things to like tear herself down. And then she looks at her phone and sees the messages that Cooper leaves her. And they're like, I can't stop thinking about you. Telling her she needs to leave something there for him, maybe panties. And tells her like not to wear any when she comes in on Monday. Yeah, it was wild. And then she had gotten a voice message from Mauve, and she felt bad because she hadn't gone to visit her. Mauve wasn't mad because she called Mauve back and they talked. Mauve just wanted to know the tea about what was going on with this new man because she knew she had a new guy in her life. And so Mauve told her the story about how it was this dentist at the retirement home that was trying to talk to her. Mauve gave her a overdue conversation. She told her, "You need to live. You know, you need to start experiencing things. You don't want to get older, look back at life, and think there's nothing in my rear view because I didn't allow it." We switch back to Cooper's POV, and for the next few weeks, um, they've been having they have lots of fun. He still, of course, feel like she's keeping a lot from him. He's got quite a few events coming up. He's having a hard time scheduling them. And she comes in and helps him. And when she comes around, of course, her ass is in his face. He can't help it. He grabs her and pulls her in his lap. And she's like, "You tricked me." He's like, "I did." He's like, "Not really. I really did need your help. But, I can't help it, when you're that close to me." She's like, "But I thought we agreed work is work, outside is outside." He's like, "I know you're right." Um, she then tells him about her first sexual experience. She was in a foster family. She was 13. The couple's older son was in college. He was 19. And he would come home for the summer. And although he never RAPE her, he, of course, touched her inappropriately and, of course, told her not to say anything. She eventually told the parents. And they, of course, whether they believed her or not, were just basically like put a smile on and grin and bear it. So they were trashed. She told her caseworker, and her caseworker took her out of that house the day she told her. Um, her actual she didn't have another sexual experience until like years later, and she was an adult. And he could clearly tell that was due to trauma, but he knew that's not what she was keeping from him. Because he's letting her touch her. So he's like, "Nah, that's not it. It's something else." But he's, of course, trying to give her the time to feel comfortable to tell him what exactly it is that's, basically keep holding you back. And she did say something about, the fact that she couldn't commit to any type of relationship. Because he, of course, was like, "We're good together. Like, this doesn't make sense for us not to be." And she told him that, you know, "I don't want to hold you back. Like, I don't want you to miss out on something because of me." She's like, "If you want to date, you can date," and all this type of stuff. And he's not into that. Like, he wants her. So she does agree to go to a mixer with him. Um, Apparently, they have to keep people from hunching in the bathroom. So it's the day of the event. She can't find anything to wear. She's tried on like 8 different dresses, and there's a knock at the door, and it's a carrier. Our boy Coop has given her some jewelry, a dress, and some new shoes. It made her so happy of the idea that Coop's across town and he's thinking about what she needed and how he wanted to provide it for her. So then she had made Aaron an early dinner, told him she'd be gone for a little bit. She heard a knock on the door. Earlier than expected, it is Coop. He's at the door. So she took Aaron to his room and told him to stay in there and close the door. And then she went to go get Coop from the front door. And she's like, "As you can see, I'm running a little behind." He's like, "Yeah, I can see." He's like, "Can I come in?" And she's like, "Okay." So she goes, frantically gets ready. Aaron comes out the room and is in the hallway looking at Coop, but Coop doesn't see him. So then she tells Aaron before she goes back in with Coop, there's leftovers for you to eat later. I'll be back in a little bit. So then she goes, and when Cooper sees her, all he says is just how stunning she is. And she doesn't know what to say, when they're in the car. She doesn't know if he saw anything or not, right? So she doesn't bring it up, you know, about the fact that, Aaron was there. So they get to the event. They have a good time. After a while, she feels all impulsive and made the comment about, well, we haven't had to stop anyone from humping in the bathroom. She's like, that sounds kind of fun though. She's like, is there a coat room? And he's like, yeah. So she's like, take me to it. So they go to the coat room, where the coats are checked, and she gives him a blowjob. He comes in her mouth, she swallows. And he's like, okay, we got to get out of here. Like, I need to take you back to my place now. So they get back to his place, and there was no trying to savor this moment. They was ready to get to it. Um, they ripped off each other's clothes, and he had to go like slow in her because she was tight. And then after that, they had this nice hard fuck. And once she came, then he came, and then of course afterwards he held her, and all of it just felt so right, and it felt right to both of them. um he wanted her to feel protected and safe, and that's so beautiful. So then one day at work, she's freaking out because she's throwing this carnival for the kids at her old orphanage, and everything's falling apart. The woman that was supposed to read to the kids is not going to read because apparently somebody slept with her husband that's going to be at the event. The people that were supposed to do the pie contest can't do it because they're now on this gluten-free diet. It's just all this kind of crazy stuff. And she is freaking out. So when Alyssa asked her to go to lunch, she's like, nah, I can't. And Alyssa thought it was because she was trying to go in and sneak some time with Cooper, but it wasn't like that. It literally was she was trying to figure out what the hell she was going to do with this carnival. So then she's at her desk. Cooper comes up and he can tell something's wrong. And she tells him, what's going on. He's like, oh, that can be fixed easily. So he knows a dunk tank guy. And as far as the pie eating contest, he told her just have 10 different people do it. That's there. And she's like, gosh, you made it so simple. Why didn't I think of that? So he says, as far as the story time, I'll read the story. He's like, and I'll come and get you earlier, so we can get everything set up. I'll come around 8 o'clock. He was wonderful. He absolutely helped her. And so he came and got her. And when it was time for the story thing, he got all interactive and uh, acted out the whole story, and he included her in it. It was like really sweet. And she knows, like, okay, I'm falling, what am I gonna do, because we can't be together. On another day, he takes her to a steakhouse, and she's like, of course, you don't have to do all this. And he's like, I just wanted a good steak. So they wind up telling stories from their childhood. It was really nice. He was just super determined um, to like have her stay the night with him because she, of course, keeps turning him down. And he, of course, as we know, he just wants more with her. So it's Saturday. She's got a lot of errands to run and do, and she has to take Aaron to the doctor for his physical therapy appointment. While he's at physical therapy, she gets a surprise visit from Mauve. Mauve had gotten someone from the retirement home to drop her off, and we find out that she was one of their foster parents, and she had raised Aaron and her as kind of like brother and sister. So Corinne, we find, has legal guardianship of Aaron. So I wonder what happened with that. And she says, about the promise that she made to him. And Moi was like, I know, but I don't think that means that you're not supposed to live your life. He would want you to get married, have children, be happy. That doesn't change, just because you made a commitment to him. He can't be your whole life. And so, then she was saying to Corinne how nice it was no, Corinne in her mind was kind of thinking this is really nice. It's kind of like having them all together at the same time in the same place as a family again, and how nice it was to have that. And they hadn't really been having that, of course, because, Mauve lives in the retirement facility now. Corinne decides that she wants to spend the night with Coop, and so she sends him a text message saying that, does the offer still stand for her to spend the night? And he's like, don't play with me, And she's like, I'm not playing. She's like, I just got to make sure what night works best for me, and I'll get back to you. And she also says to him, I'll tell you everything soon, you know. And he just says, I trust you. And she's a little worried once she has to tell him everything because she's afraid everything's going to implode. So they get together at his place outside on his balcony. They have great conversation. They start kissing. They make it to the bedroom. And normally, I guess they've been doing missionary, but he wanted to switch it up. He wanted to do a little reverse cowgirl. And of course, she was down. And she's kind of mad at herself after this great session too, because she knows she's falling for him, and she's mad at herself that she allowed herself to do it and not telling everything that needs to be said. So she goes to work. Her mind's preoccupied. She doesn't even hear, the things that are being called out to her. And she says it's because she's working on invoices. That's what she tells Alyssa. But the truth is, her brain, it's stuck on Coop. She feels like, she needs to cut it off fast. She needs to stop it. Eventually, they'll be able to get back to a normal boss employee type of a situation. But she feels like she's got to do this now. So he's calling her phone while she's at lunch with Alyssa, and she ignores the call. So then the next 4 days, old girl calls out. She stops answering his texts. She's not coming to work. So now he's pissed, but he also wants to know what the hell is going on. Goes to Quinn's office, looks at her personnel file. Nothing seems out of the way. But then he notices her benefits page and sees a box check. Girl is married to Aaron O'Neill. He texts her, "You're fucking married?" And after he sends the text, he turns his phone off. He tells his brothers what happened. Gavin's like, come over. We'll have a guys' night. He's like, I'll have, Emma go to one of her friends. He's like, Emma doesn't have to leave. That's her home. We're fine. We're good. He realizes he never really loved Emma the way he clearly has, fallen in love with Corinne. And I think it helps him also I think he already understood it, but he fully understands that he never felt that way about Emma, and the mere fact that he never felt that all-consuming emotion for her, and he knows that's how Corinne feels for Gavin, how Gavin feels for Emma. It's like, I get it. I didn't really love her. I think he loved the idea of it because it made sense, right? They would have been a really good couple, but just because it makes sense doesn't mean it's going to be an actually good relationship. So they go over to Gavin's place. Emma orders pizza for him, and then she leaves him be, kind of have their brother time. They drink, and he, of course, is like, what the hell am I going to do? And he's like, he would go in through different moments of, like, he's got to wake up in the morning, and this is all going to be real. He can have some distraction right now talking to his brothers, but this stuff is going to get real. This shit's going to hurt. So we switch back to Corinne's POV, and we find out that she sent Cooper a message after the one he sent her. And she, of course, had sent, please let me explain. But he never sent anything back. Finally, one day he does respond to her. This is days later, and he said to meet him at the cafe that was close to the job. So she does. She goes to explain everything, and we get the whole story. So her and Aaron, remember, they were in the same foster family. Mauve was their foster parent. At one point, They grew into being like best friends. And that did develop into more feelings, but they never were together sexually. So when they aged out of the system at 18, they got an apartment together. She apparently had known that he was going to try and propose to her. He had been saving up for a ring. And she had wanted to break it off because she didn't see him that way. She really just saw him as family, like a friend. So at first, like Cooper's getting pissed because he's like, I know you're sitting up here trying to tell me that you're soulmates, you know. She's like, no, 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 no. Like, just hear me out. So one morning, Aaron took off. He was running late. He was riding his bike. He gets plowed by a car, brain damage, spinal injury, all type of stuff. So she married him to basically so that he could have health insurance because he doesn't have anyone else in the world. So that's why she did it. But I'm kind of confused because I'm like, if he has the mind of an 8-year-old, that means he's not competent. So how could this marriage even be, legal, legit? I don't know. But anyway, I digress. So he's listening. He's telling her he understands. At first he was mad. He thought she was telling him, again, this love story. And he did understand why she didn't say anything. She told him that, she's not going to divorce Aaron. She's not going to throw him away. And she says that's why we can never be together. And she feels guilty when she's with him, and she feels guilty when she was with Aaron, because when she's with Aaron, she thinks about him. And so basically she just says we can never be together. And he said, okay, well then goodbye, my little dove. And he kissed her on the cheek and she ran off. So the next few days go by, and Cooper's a mess. He's not going to work. He's drinking. It's bad. So this, of course, hurts a lot worse because this was actually him being in love with someone. So he's been ignoring the phone calls from his brothers. They eventually show up banging on the door, and they're like, we're not leaving until you open up. So he goes, opens the door. He's like, damn, you weren't even that bad after. And then Quinn stopped talking, and Cooper's like, you can say her name. It doesn't matter. So he says, well, shit, since Emma. So then he tells them the whole story. They were like, they had the same thought I had, which was, if he had brain damage, how could he even consent to the marriage? This doesn't sound legal. So Cooper said, I don't know. I just know they're fucking married. So they're going to do some research, Gavin and Quinn, to see if this is even really binding. But Gavin also tells him, you need to do some soul searching, and she doesn't have romantic feelings for the guy. It's more of a brotherly love. So why can't you be in her life? He's like, you need to figure some stuff out. So then Cooper decides he's going to go talk to Moif since she knows everything. So then he goes to the retirement home and he has this conversation with her, and she tells him, listen, she uses Aaron as a crutch. I say, Jesus, just tell it all. She says it helps her not have to commit, right? So if you got a fear of commitment, fear of love, fear of anything, and you have, a crutch you can use, you're going to do it. And she says, basically, do you love her? Is this who you want? And he says, I love her. And I would help her with him. I would never make her cast him aside or anything like that. And so Moab says, so what the hell are you doing sitting here? Go get your girl. So he leaves, goes to the office, because the guys had told him that she had put in her resignation. Today was her last day. And so he goes to the office. She's in his office, and they talk. And he tells her, the marriage isn't legally binding. And she says, I know that. She's like, but I could never leave him. I could never throw him away. And he says, you don't have to. He's like, I would help you. Like, you wouldn't have to do this alone. And she, of course, is like, I couldn't ask that of you, He's like, but I want to do that for you. He's like, this is no different than a woman that had a child with special needs. If I love that woman, I'm going to help her with her child. He was like, and I love you. And she cried because she's like, I love you too. And they had this passionate kiss, and he told her how much he had missed her. And she, of course, missed him. And then he told her to stop packing her stuff, to go unpack because she is not quitting. And she, of course, was like, oh my gosh, you're so bossy. 3 weeks later, Corinne and Aaron, they're going to move in with Cooper. We find out Cooper's made all these adjustments, these modifications to the apartment so it's more wheelchair accessible, to make sure Aaron feels more comfortable, like it's his home. And he's also hired a new nurse who's beyond qualified. And it was really nice. Aaron seemed so happy. He was mystified by the view of the city because Cooper's got this huge, penthouse apartment. It's like 4,000 square feet. So they have dinner. They order pizza. Um, Aaron and the nurse go in the room, and then afterwards, she's just so thankful for him, and she wants to reward him, and so she gives him a great blowjob. So before he could blow, he of course was like, "We got to switch this up." And then they have this nice hard fuck. She of course was like, "I appreciate so much, you know, how much you made Aaron feel comfortable." And he's like, um, "I mean, you can give me the blowjobs, but you don't have to do it because of that." He's like, "I wouldn't have asked you to move in here if I didn't want that." And he figured, while they were butt naked, he couldn't wait any longer. So he reached in the drawer, pulled out the little black box, and asked her to marry him. And she, of course, said yes. And actually, she didn't even say yes at first. She just leaped up on him and started kissing him. And he knew the ring size because Moav had told him. So it was perfect. And, of course, she's super happy. And he really understood what it meant now to find your person. So months later, well, no, actually, they've been together like a year and a half by the time they get married. And they have a beautiful wedding. Gavin and Quinn paid for it. They wanted to give her, Corinne, the wedding of her dreams. That was so sweet. She's close with Emma. He loves it. She gets along with the brothers. It's beautiful. He decided he's going to take her away for their honeymoon. She had thought they were just going to get a place in the city. But he surprised her. One of his clients had offered up their private jet, and so they're going to spend a week in the Bahamas. And she is so excited. She's never been anywhere. So this, of course, is just beyond. They exchanged these beautiful I love yous. And that was how it ended. I thought this was so sweet. Super, super sweet. So the next and final book in the series is called Tempting Little Teas. We get Quinn's story. I'm excited about this. What did you guys think of Torrid Little Affair? I thought it was good. I did not see it coming that she was going to be married to Aaron. I thought it was going to be more so just she's just freaking out because it's a lot of responsibility to have someone with special needs. And I thought that's what she was so afraid of, right? I didn't know it was going to be like she was married. Well, she really wasn't even married. So I'm like, all that crap for nothing. But I thought this was cute read. Let me know what you guys think. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and those links will be available down below in the description section as well. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.